ocean walls are the vertical interface between the reef and the blue, where shallow water predators intersect with those that live in the deep. And on these walls, anything can show up. And whilst I've got a good idea about what lives at the top of the wall, nobody's got a good idea about what lives at the bottom of it. So today, we're going to drop this camera down and find out. Camera's on, light is on. The top of this wall lies just a few meters below the surface, but it sharply drops down to several hundred meters. Our mission is to drop cameras on multiple spots, in the day and at night, and we're starting in and amongst the rocks. With strong surge, the camera initially struggled to find its footing, but this water movement also helped disperse the scent from the fish in the bait cage, and it wasn't long until the first predators emerged from their hiding spots. Several rare deep reef fish, like this vivid deep-water Anthias, also came in for a closer look. This Neptune grouper, however, kept its distance, making sure to not venture too far from safety amongst the rocks. Many crustaceans also quickly picked up the scent. Unfortunately for this decorator crab though, after finally summiting the large boulder next to the cage, it realised it couldn't quite reach the bait. Although it didn't hang around, for on this wall, hesitation can be fatal. That was a dog-toothed tuna. Dogtooths aren't the most effective predators that hunt on these walls though, but more on that later. Several shadows also drifted past much higher up on the wall. I believe this is the biggest bony fish in the ocean, the Molla alexandrini, or ocean sunfish. But whilst mollusks have little interest in the bait in the cage, the same cannot be said for deep water moray eels. This is a hyphin moray, the same species we recorded down at these depths before. As a reminder, the scientific literature states that these morays supposedly only inhabit shallow reefs down to 20 meters, so either the literature is wrong, or the ones on this reef don't play by the same rules. One thing that's for certain though, is that they don't waste time feeding when an opportunity arises. In snake-like fashion, this hyphin moray started with the tail section of the fish mounted on the cage, before coming back in a second time to try and finish off the rest. But why do all these creatures live on ocean walls? Well, this wall was formed by ancient eruptions from a massive stratovolcano. At the surface, it supports vibrant coral reef ecosystems, filled with branching corals, sponges, and reef fish like snappers, parrotfishes, and puffers. Many make use of the wall's vertical surface for feeding, shelter, and spawning. But as you descend, light begins to fade, and the coral-filled reef gives way to species that don't need as much light to flourish. Large fans cling to the walls, and other reef species hide amongst the many cracks and crevices that run deep into the rocky cliff. However, this wall doesn't just attract reef life, it also draws in open ocean creatures like trevallies, tunas, and mackerels. These predatory fish use the wall like an underwater highway, quickly ascending and diving deep in search of food. Upwelling currents push cold, nutrient-rich water up the face of the wall, feeding plankton, which in turn supports the entire food chain. It's these features that make ocean walls so ecologically interesting and biodiverse. For the next drop, we went much deeper, and at 200 meters our gear was completely maxed out. This drop was quiet, but we did pull in a new species that I've not seen before, a deep water red snapper. After a close inspection, this one got spooked. For drop 3, we placed the camera a little further up the slope. At these depths, the reef is alive with squat lobsters and other crustaceans feeding on detritus that falls to the ocean floor. Another molla appeared to drift past in the distance, but this massive dog-toothed tuna came in for a much closer look. Despite the first drop being packed with action, after moving away from the rocks, we were struggling to find the fish. And given every drop requires us to retrieve about 30 kilos of gear from the ocean floor, in very strong currents, we needed to make the next drops count.
Guys, we need a much better way of doing this, so we're thinking about building a winch, a hand winch with a big drum, but if you've got any better ideas as to how we can drag that thing up, it weighs like 20 kilos from down at 150, 200 meters, let me know in the comments, because I can only do this so many more times.
But it turned out we had much bigger problems.
Oh guys, I think we're about to get wet. Look at that out there. Oh dear. Quick update. It started raining.
After dropping camera 4, the conditions on the surface deteriorated fast. The storm had whipped up strong undercurrents that had pulled the floats under the surface and lifted the camera rig off the bottom. We'd lost the camera. However, after scouring the area for over half an hour, eventually the buoys resurfaced. But we weren't out of trouble just yet.
It was raging.
Little did I know though, that our luck was about to change.
Okay, so we're now going to try a night drop, as if things weren't already hard enough. So, camera's rolling, looks pretty nice. Hopefully, some of the stuff that's been holding a little bit deeper during the day is now going to be a bit more shallow, but let's see. Oh, look at that. Down we go.
Now, make sure you're paying attention, because what happens next happens very fast. As soon as the camera hit the bottom, something massive emerged from out of the darkness. This is a scalloped hammerhead shark, and was one of the creatures I was so desperate to record at the bottom of this wall. If I rewind and stop the clip just here, you can see the white underside of this shark's hammer-like head, a dead giveaway. These sharks hunt on the sand at night, and I suspect it saw the light descending and came in for a closer look. But it's not just big sharks that come out at night to feed. This is a massive brittle star. During the day, these echinoderms hide under rocks, emerging at night and walking around the sand in search of food. These stars get their name from their ability to quickly shed their arms when threatened, although perhaps the most bizarre fact about brittle stars is they have no brain and no blood running through a circulatory system. Instead, they use filtered seawater to pump nutrients through their bodies. Planktonic creatures also ascend from the deep ocean at night to feed, like these small fish larvae that were drawn to the camera lights on the rig, mistaking them for the moon. But much weirder critters also come up from the deep. These are planktonic polychaete worms, and there were hundreds of them. I'm not entirely sure what type of worms these are, but it's possible these are adult worms that have emerged from the seafloor to reproduce, releasing sperm or eggs before drifting away. The next day, we returned to the same spot. On drop 5, we landed the camera right amongst a school of breams and jobfish. Whilst hesitant at first, they did feed on the odd occasion, although were perhaps wary of both the large sun-like light shining at them, as well as the constant threat from large predatory fish. This is a crimson jobfish. Like the smaller species, these larger jobfish were hesitant, although their confidence did grow. A cornetfish also drifted past in the distance. These long, slender predatory fish are commonly seen in the shallows here, but I didn't realise they ventured this deep. One fish I've never seen in the shallows though is this one, the almacojack or longfin yellowtail. This pair were accompanied by 2 trevallies, and it's possible these different species patrol the depths as a team in search of food. So far, the deep wall drops had provided loads of action, but I still wasn't satisfied and was convinced that there was more to be found. And as we sat in the boat waiting to pull up the camera for drop 6, I had absolutely no idea of just how much action the camera was recording, all the way down at 150 meters. Initially, most of the action came from species we'd already recorded. Squat lobsters danced along the sand, and large crimson jobfish swam past hesitantly, trying to whip up the courage to venture closer. A large bottom-dwelling sand perch also swam by. Shortly afterwards though, another common critter appeared, but this one was doing something very unusual. This is a feather star or crinoid, and this one was using its undulating arms to swim over to the bait cage. They're one of the only echinoderms that can swim. Feather stars are suspension feeders, meaning they catch organic material in the water column. It's likely that this one repositioned itself to increase its chances of catching the tiny scraps of fish pulled out of the bait cage by the current. Now, feather stars have an ancient lineage dating back over 450 million years, but they're not the oldest creature that patrols the bottom of this wall. If you watch the last baited camera video, this incredibly weird creature will look very familiar. This is a nautilus, a near-blind tentacled cephalopod closely related to octopus that floats around in the deep ocean looking for scraps to scavenge on. In lots of places around the world, nautilus populations are struggling due to overfishing for their pricey shells, but here they seem to be thriving. Unlike last time, this one easily consumed half of the fish on top of the cage. It did its best to get the rest, but its aggressive pump action technique wasn't quite strong enough. But just before the Nautilus arrived, the camera had a visit from something I was convinced I would never find here. This is an Indonesian wobbegong, and I've been searching for one of these in the area for years. Now, wobbegongs are carpet sharks, named for the unique lobe-like skin flaps around their mouths and their ability to lay flat on the ocean floor. These sharks are sit-and-wait predators, striking with insane speed when prey, usually fish or crustaceans, comes too close. It's thought that the skin flaps around their mouths also help attract prey seeking shelter. This, as well as their mastery of camouflage, makes them the perfect predator. Perhaps the one thing that lets them down, though, is their eyesight. The poor featherstar found this out the hard way after being beaten by the wobbegong's tail on several occasions. This sighting is unusual for a couple of reasons. Firstly, like the moray we recorded the day before, Indonesian wobbegongs supposedly don't hunt this deep. Secondly, they're not known to scavenge. It's possible that this shark was drawn in by other activity around the cage, or perhaps in near total darkness, it was more stimulated by the scent and the light on the structure. This sighting serves as a reminder that we know incredibly little about what lurks in the deep. I'm already drawing up plans to go much deeper and drop these cameras on seamounts and underwater volcanoes. Rumour has it there's a great white around. Subscribe if you want to see what we record next, and if you're in the mood for more, you'll probably like this video.